Hello, and welcome to the Slow Ready Podcast, a casual drive into the music and culture of Goose. I'm Alex.
And I'm Mike.
And we're joined today by a very special guest, Cincinnati native and friend of the pod, Kelsey, aka Jively Designs. How you doing, Kelsey?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Awesome.
Doing awesome. Glad to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Very exciting to be able to represent the city after an exciting run.
Terrific. Well, we're going to get into that shortly here. There's a lot to talk about, but for that, just want to plug our social media at Slow Ready Pod. Everywhere on the socials, we even are on Blue Sky now. Got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, we're there. So that's the best way to keep up with new episodes and any new content or news about Goose. So we had to have Kelsey on to talk about the latest run of shows from Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and DC, and we want to highlight her work. So we want y'all to get to know her better. But first, we got to get into the news and notes for the week, which is just that Goose is headlining the All Good Now Festival at Merriweather Post Pavilion in Columbia, Maryland. Awesome lineup here. Are y'all thinking about going, or is there anyone that you'd want to see if you went to the festival?
I really am considering it. The FOMO is real. That lineup is amazing. Just I love the Biscuits for one, so that's really cool to see them on there. I have been to All Good at the Mountaintop, and I've also been to All Good at Legend Valley. And that festival, it is a very special festival to me. So I'm very excited to see it coming back and to kind of see the new model, I guess it's taking on. I think festivals are kind of revamping, and I'm excited to see where this goes. So
sweet. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, it's definitely something I'm considering strongly. Obviously, the lineup is incredible. I also would like to see the Disco Biscuits with Goose, but also Aggie, Dogs in a Pile. There's a lot of great artists there. Neil Francis, I think. So definitely high on the priority list for me.
Yeah, for sure. My wife and I are also definitely going to try to snag some good tickets because I hate festivals typically. I'm getting old, but it's going to be a great time. Great time. String Cheese Incident, awesome. J-Rad, obviously great. Really looking forward to Molly Tuttle too. I'm a big fan of hers, so gonna be sweet. But with that, let's get into the shows, into the Flowdown, we're calling our main segment this week.
That's appropriate.
So let's start with Pittsburgh, where Mike was in attendance. So Mike, how about you read off the set list here, since you're the expert for this show?
I don't know, expert might be pushing it a little bit, but we started off set one with The Whales and Mr. Action, real nice interlude 2 into Jive 1, an all-time Jively. Not Alone comes back, and then really surprising medley of Maniac, Danger Zone, back into Maniac, and So Ready to close out set 1. And then set 2 starts off with a Madhavan into Travelers, Elmig, Autumn Crossing, back into Madhavan, finishing the sandwich with Creatures, an Animal, and then an encore of Salt. So you guys have any thoughts on highlights here?
I was watching the set list and I was just like, they get started and I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. And then I see the interlude pop up and I really wanted a Jivefacta. And I saw that go down and I was like, okay, well, that's all right. I'll deal. And then I didn't check the set list, I think, until the show was over. And I just kind of saw what unfolded. And I knew that we'd be taken care of though. So, but I mean, the Maniac, Danger Zone, Maniac, So Ready situation is so much fun. That's a really, really fun way to end a set.
So good. Mike, what do you have thoughts-wise on this first set in specific? What were your main highlights? You've mentioned Jively, obviously, but it's kind of all a highlight, huh?
Yeah, I mean, the Jive 1 had a lot of great improv from everyone. I loved the Mr. Action breakdown, Rick soloing on that going into the peak. There was like these ever increasing speed burst runs that were really cool to listen back to. But the Jively was just insane. They had the like arpeggiator looping samples going, but it sounded like there were like multiples of the loops. It was like really dense. I don't know how he was doing it, but Rick was still finding a way to weave in and out of all those loops and even highlight some of the notes from them a couple times. So that was really impressive. Like Kelsey said, the Maniac, Danger Zone Maniac was also awesome. There was some Dark Goose sprinkled in there. And I'm really loving what Peter's tone has been like on these So Ready satellite solos. Yeah, it was outstanding first set.
Hey, you both nailed it. I really don't have much more to say outside of Peter's really been rocking this kind of like robot-y 80s.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Beat boop thing going on, and it's just killer, especially on Jively. I noticed it. So good. Just a high energy version. We highlighted it on our page like immediately after it happened because just a killer Jive Lee, and it's been a great year for it. But the only other thing I guess I'd note outside of that monster sandwich cover sandwich in the set is Not Alone. First time played in over a year. Mike hates this song, but he doesn't like slow songs, so I gotta highlight it here.
We were actually listening to this show while we were getting ready for the flow down when all the artists and vendors were coming in. And I didn't realize we were listening to the Pittsburgh show. And it like took me a second. I was like, what is this song? Why can't I place it? And why do I feel like we haven't heard it in a while? And someone filled me in and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about it. It's one of the slower songs, but I do feel like it's like kind of like a quintessential Goose sound. I think it brings some sentimental value, I guess, to the set list, if that makes sense. It's a good way to bring it down before they heat it back up, you know?
Definitely. And sorry to throw you shade there, Mike, but I totally agree with you, Kelsey. It's awesome to get this song as a cool down. I think it was kind of a little bit of odd placement in the set. You know, you usually like to see these slow ballads like second to last song in the set, but you kind of had a fire ending from Maniac on, so there wasn't really a better place to place it.
Yeah, they had to cool people down after that Jive Fecta situation or Jive One Jive Lee, and then they had to cool everybody off and then bring it back up. So I think that's their thing.
And I'm just going to jump back in since shots were fired my way when I did absolutely nothing to anyone here. But no, I do like Not Alone. It wouldn't be my first choice to hear at a concert for me personally, but it's a good song.
I have that same feeling with Lead Up. I don't know why. Like the song, I don't dislike it or anything. It's just kind of like, I have the same emotion towards it.
I've got receipts, Mike. Don't worry. No, but one other note about Maniac and Danger Zone was the first time they played Maniac, I thought it was like a different way of getting into Danger Zone when they were playing it at Halloween. So it was kind of like, oh, that's a very, very fitting sandwich there. So great stuff. We get into this set two here with a Madhuvan sandwich to start. Incredible creativity on this set list. Madhuvan into Travelers into Elmeg, it back into Madhuvan. Whole run was a huge surprise. Mike, what were your thoughts seeing it live?
Yeah, it was absolutely unbelievable. I'll be thinking about that for a long time. I think that the Madhuvan, even like on its own, the first part is just so interesting and gorgeous to listen back to. Kind of like the same chord progression that they used at the end of Into the Mist in Nashville. I also think it's pretty similar to the chord progression of like Wicked Game by Chris Isaak, but like they slow it down so much and just give themselves so much space to just play around in that airy, ethereal mood that they get into from time to time. And then to have Autumn Crossing sandwich it before coming back to the fierce part of Madhuvan at the end, it was just absolutely electric live. And everybody that was in my row was, having celebrations of sorts. So definitely one of my higher Goose moments for sure. And just so much fun to listen back to. And I'll be honest, like after that finished with the back half of Madhuvan, everyone there was like kind of just feeling like Creatures and Animal were bonus songs. Like if it had ended after the Madhuvan Autumn Crossing sandwich, I don't think anyone would have been upset at all because it was just awesome stuff.
Any thoughts on that run there, Kelsey?
I think honestly, if I was there, I would have probably felt the same way about the Creatures and Animal, like the Madhuvan Travelers Elmeg back into Madhuvan. That is just right there is amazing, like a once in a lifetime kind of set list. I feel like on its own. I was obviously really hoping for the Travelers Elmeg suite in Cincinnati, but I'm glad that Pittsburgh got it. I think it being a Thursday night show, I know that like there were a lot of open seats, and I just kind of had a feeling that they were gonna just burn it down because of that. And also, I have a couple really special people that live in Pittsburgh, so I'm happy that they got to be there for that. So,
Yeah, they've been playing Autumn Crossing quite a bit this year, and it's gotten mixed response. But I think it's great they're playing it, especially after releasing it officially. Like, the more people who get to hear it, the better, I think. So,
I love it.
yeah, so maybe you'll get it sometime soon, hopefully soon, because it's definitely making the rotation.
I've had two Elmegs, so I can't be too greedy, but I've had two. I got one, I think it was like the third show, and I actually didn't know Goose's library that well yet. And so like it was like kind of going into Elmeg blind, and hearing that was really mind-blowing and awesome. So can't be too mad about that.
Yeah, and maybe one day they'll split these up again. It's been a while. It'd be nice to see it become more of a surprise, I guess, if they're split up sometimes and you're not always expecting to get Elmeg after Travelers or get the full suite, but not going to complain about hearing the whole thing because it's incredible.
I'm sure they will. They always have something up their sleeve. So
Yeah, yeah, and like this set list is kind of the perfect encapsulation of that. Great point. That they're just so creative with how they're putting these sandwiches together, or these transitions together. They're all seemingly flawless this year, and especially this tour. And to Mike's point earlier, the creature's animal, even watching it from home, it almost felt like you were still riding the high off of Madhuvan, that you couldn't even like fathom what was going on with those two songs to end the set. You needed like almost the 20 minutes of breathing room to just get over what the incredible stuff you heard to start the set.
Yeah, that was definitely true. Like, it took me a few minutes to get into Creatures and start like actually like just enjoying it and being focused on that, because it was just like, I mean, where the hell do you even go from here? And one more thing I just wanted to call out before we move on from Pittsburgh. Friend of the pod, Darren, he really hooked it up for me. I met up with him before the show. He bought me a bunch of drinks, and then he had an extra ticket, so I got to join him for set 2 and see Goose from another perspective in the arena. And it was just a really great time hanging out with him. He's been super cool and supportive of us. So
Yeah, shout out to Darren. Great company. And then the encore of Salt, always terrific, can go anywhere in a set. How do you feel about the name changes on Salt?
They're keeping us on our toes for sure. I don't know if that is like on purpose, I don't know, but it's hard to design any kind of, art or anything for this song because it keeps changing. So I'm like, I'll write something down and then next week it's completely different. So who knows? I think it's cool though. I like these little almost like inside jokes that they, kind of keep carrying on with like Zalt and salts, and just makes it fun.
Yeah, there's like merch on Etsy and stuff you'll see even around the song, and it's like, how are they ever going to sell this now? It says Zalt on all their shirts. Like,
I'm just gonna go through and like cross it out, like the old tattoo art. You just cross it out, and
there you
then
go.
everybody will understand. They'll get it. It'll just be part of the joke.
Hell yeah. So we leave Pittsburgh. We go to your shows, Cincinnati, Ohio, Andrew J. Brady Music Center. What were the vibes like before the show, night one? I know you were getting ready for your big event for night 2. So what was that like?
Yeah, just a lot of excitement. Everybody was just so happy to be there. And Cincinnati's a great city anyway. We love to make everybody feel welcome. But I know that, like, with Cincinnati, the New Year's run in 22, there was everybody loved our city so much, and it was so good to hear that, and just to have the people bringing that love back for this run. You could feel it. You could feel how excited everybody was. And I know that like Goose loves playing here, and they have kind of a little bit of a rich history with Cincinnati and stuff. So it all kind of clicks, I feel like, for everybody, the community as well as the band. They love Cincinnati and we love them here. So I think everybody was just buzzing and ready to rock, and very curious what they were going to play, I think, after Pittsburgh.
Oh boy. Do you have the set list pulled up by chance? You want to read it off for us?
Sure. So let's see. We've got night 1. I got my notes here. Atlas Dogs, Elizabeth, All I Need, One In, One Out, Flow Down, Silver Rising, Big Modern. And then set 2 was Thatch, Old Man's Boat, Fish in the Sea, Pancakes. And then So I'm Growing Old on Magic Mountain. It's a mouthful. SOS. And then the encore is Turn On Your Love Light.
So what highlights from the show stuck out to you most? I guess starting with set 1, and then we can dive into set 2 and the encore after.
So I love the indie groove version of the Atlas Dogs. Like, I love that. I was at SPAC and got that version, which I was really pumped about. I feel like when they first did it, I think like 2 years ago, it wasn't well received. And I actually kind of like went back on Reddit and I was just like kind of looking at the comments, and it definitely seems like a mixed bag. I think now people are really responding well to it because I think it kind of goes really well with like the big modern and like the one in, one out, like this new sound of like, I don't even know. I've heard people say like big modern kind of sounds like Dire Straits. So I don't know if you want to say like whatever this like yacht rock or whatever you want to call it. I just feel like that Atlas Dogs, the indie groove version, fits really well into their vibes right now. So I was pretty pumped about that one. Elizabeth, I have a theory that like if there's like Wales or Elizabeth early on, you're just going to get like a monster show every single time. I feel like that's like, it happens every time. Always a funky jam.
Back to science.
Oh, right? I know. And then the flow down was crazy. Like that really, really long intro with like the secret agent man teases. And I feel like that's kind of where Peter started bringing in the like the synthy beep boops here for that night. That's like really where he started kicking it up. But Big Modern, I really, really wanted to hear that. And I was super pumped that they played that and they brought that down to end set one. It was all really great. One in, one out. Was happy to hear that one. I know you're asking for highlights. It's hard though. It was all so good.
Yeah, it's kind of a futile effort, I think, for these Cincinnati shows to ask for highlights because the entire weekend was a giant highlight. But yeah, great insights. You really echoed a lot of what I had in my notes. Mike, you have anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, I have like a whole ass monologue on this Cincy run, so I'm gonna just try and bounce around as best as I can. I really love Elizabeth in the 2 slot. I think that they should play Elizabeth more often than they do. I don't know why they don't. It should definitely be at more shows. The All I Need was really, really good. Starts off kind of in like that ambient, undefined space, but it doesn't stay very long. Feel like Pete kind of pushes the tempo with the pace of his playing, and within a minute, they're like just kind of blasting off from there.
I feel like that's really where they kind of start flying. Like they really get going in that All I Need jam for sure.
Definitely. And it like propels into this like off kilter, wobbly, psychedelic space. Really like love the marimba piano from Peter there. And that long sustained note from Rick is like a thing of beauty before going into like an all out attack. Big Modern was really, really cool. Started off with like some laid back blues and works its way to like a pretty discordant, unstable place, but they quickly pivot into a peak that's really, really fun. Just love Big Modern, what they continue to do with it. You keep getting like different versions of the jams on it. It's so good. I want it at every show.
I know. Amazing. It is really fun. Where were you sitting for that? I'm just curious. Were you on the floor or were you like back to where you could see Getty's lights?
I was at home watching on Nugs.
Oh my gosh, why did I think you were there? I'm so sorry. I thought, well, that's perfect though, because the lights for Big Modern, like when you're sitting back, I was like dead center for at SPAC when I heard it first. And it was like just Getty's lights. He does this like smoke thing with the lights and then like it reflects. I don't know. It's insane. But I got to see it on the floor this past time and then versus, set back at SPAC, which was really cool just seeing. I love like moving around and being different spots for shows just for that reason, because every perspective is different with Getty right now. It's insane. I love it so much. He really
I know
shines
exactly
on
what
Big
you're
Modern.
talking about. Like he's been doing really cool things specifically with the smoke where he's like been able to like project circles and different shapes in the smoke. And like sometimes if you're like looking at it from a center perspective, you're just like, how big is this kid's brain? Because I mean, it's just like I don't even know how someone comes up with these concepts to play with smoke and light like that. It's just insane.
It's insane. It's like forming like shapes and triangles and like geometry. It's insane. Getty, you rock.
Definitely. Yes.
There's points of the show where you just watch the fog machines and see like the different speeds at which it's being released. And like, I don't know. Getty is the sixth man for sure. This band.
Oh yeah.
So important to their success. I feel like it's just incredible what he does, and he levels up every tour. I feel like.
And he's also like so nice, so sweet, just so humble too. So he's great. Good part of the team.
For sure. Shout out to Getty. Hope to have him on one day to chat with him. I think he'd be an awesome insight to the fan base in terms of all the cool stories I'm sure he has and how much work he does for this band.
Right. I know. I don't even understand half of what he does. So
taking it back a little bit, y'all talked about this All I Need being kind of the launching off point for this set. And I got to agree with that completely. Just so emotional, packed crazy punch in a short amount of time. When I looked back at the timestamps on this, I thought it was like twice as long as it wound up being, just from how much they stuffed into a short jam there. Really optimistic, catchy riffing on this that just kind of blows up into a break. It blows up and then breaks down into the one in, one out transition. And after that one in, one out, flow down. One of the all-time great intros, I feel like, to Flow Down. Just really palm muty, clicky intro by Rick, and then Peter's doing this kind of like diddly double riffing thing where he's hitting the notes multiple times, and yeah, kind of dark, interesting, unique intro to Flow Down right after our episode where we were trying to find versions of Flow Down to highlight, and this one is one of the unique, great ones.
I have a really good one. I'm sure you guys probably talked about it. The Legend Valley flow down from 21. Oh my gosh, that was like my first like show after I had gone down the rabbit hole. And that flow down, it's just absolutely beautiful. I won't get stuck on it, but that's my favorite flow down. I love it. It's so pretty.
So pretty. And yeah, we highlighted it a little bit, but we got to go back and do a redo of that episode clearly after this run.
Well, this is kind of a fun fact. So I was listening to TED Tapes 24. You guys might know this. I don't know. But, just like listening, hadn't listened in a while. And Regulus is one in, one out. Did you guys know that? That
Yeah.
blew my mind. I've been able to figure out a lot of like the jams that are in TED Tapes, because I have a theory that that's kind of what's happening there. But one in, one out, that was my latest discovery. I thought that was crazy. That was really cool.
They've been doing a lot of these head tapes teases too, outside of obviously Regulus being very similar to One In, One Out, and definitely the genesis of the song. I feel like been hearing like Leo thrown in quite a bit.
Love Leo.
Just all kinds of like little nods to the TED tapes. I feel like that. If diehard fan like us, you're like, oh my god, I love the TED tapes.
And I think I have that like kind of brain where I don't forget riffs and stuff, and I'm like, what is that from? Where do I know that from? And then it's usually TED tapes. It's somewhere in the TED tapes. I've picked it up and then I recognize it, and that's how that goes. Sorry, I didn't mean to get stuck.
Don't worry about it. It's all good. We love the insight. But going into the set 2, monster start to the set 2. Got a Thatch, unbelievable Thatch, and then just never stops from there. So what are your highlights from this set 2?
Oh, geez. Again, it's hard to choose. Thatch as a whole is always a highlight, but the fish in the sea, man, like that was so cool. Prior to my obsession with Goose, I've always been like a Jamtronica girl. So, like STS9 was my first kind of band that I fell in love with in this scene. So like that fish in the sea it had some Jamtronica wholeheartedly woven through that. And it was just so cool. Like I heard them dropping into it somewhere early on. I feel like I kind of like could hear it. And that synth just kept kicking in, and it was so good. Peter really just brought it. Like he's exploring that whole like looping and just getting really in depth with, I don't know, all the sounds that he can make, I guess. And I feel like Fish in the Sea is a really good like vehicle for that. I don't know if that's the right word, but the Pancakes is always great. Like I feel like every time they play Pancakes, I forget that it's Pancakes somewhere in there. And like it's just so good. Like the jam, they are never the same. Every Pancakes is different. And when Pancakes starts, they're about to just like light it on fire. Also, there was Give It Time teases in that Pancakes. So that was a highlight for me.
Yeah, got to agree with you on Fish in the Sea. That was my main highlight, but actually including that Old Man's Boat beforehand too. They kind of feel like sister jams, and almost like the Fish in the Sea jam was just a continuation of the Old Man's Boat jam that just like had a little bit of Fish in the Sea jamming or singing along in the middle. But just a great kind of locked in envelope filter sound by Rick to highlight this really groovy Trevor bass solo that's just kind of riding throughout the entire jam on Old Man's Boat and just continues into Fish in the Sea. So great call on that. And yeah, Pancakes. We keep saying these songs are like the song of 2024, but Pancakes, man, that's got an argument too.
It's always such a jam vehicle. It always is. They really just can like transport you with that song. Like it's such a silly like song, but it's also, I have really been taken to some places with some Pancakes jams. Like they bring it with the Pancakes, and then just it's so fun when like Peter starts clapping and everyone joins in, and the energy it's like palpable when Pancakes starts.
Hell yeah. Mike, you got any thoughts on any highlights from watching?
Yeah, I'll try and trim them down as best as I can, but so many thoughts. That was very cool. It was very like laid back 80s space funk at first, but I love the progression they latch onto like just after the 11-minute mark. Feel like it really opens up from there into like almost similar to Eminence Front type of vibes, but it's definitely
Hmm.
also its own thing. I love everyone's work there, but Trevor is absolutely breathing hot fire on Thatch. Rick, as he does, is going full Jedi Master on this peak. Unreal. I love the Old Man's Boat. It's so crazy how many genres Goose covers. Old Man's Boat reminds me of almost like a 50s song. It always gets a killer solo. I love the heavy organ in that. That was so fun.
Well, they like, before they, sorry to interrupt, but real
Go
quick
ahead.
on Old Man's Boat, I feel like, people are like, oh, it's a pee song, but then it's like, no, like they finish the song and then, like Trevor goes into his little like bass groove and then that they're just like about to settle into this jam and it gets so I don't know, it's just like so organic sounding and then they go into the sound of like the transition with the fish in the sea and it's a very adaptable song. I think it's kind of like an underdog.
Totally. Yeah, I would never go pee during Old Man's Boat.
Right,
Those
I
people are
know.
Crazy.
Chompers too. I hear a lot of chompers and I'm just like, shut up, guys. Like this is a great song.
It's unreal.
Always get some of my favorite solos from Rick. And then definitely agreeing with both of you on Fish in the Sea. It always slaps, but more awesome arpeggiated loops from Peter. I really think like all this time that he's been like doing the DJ stuff is like really opening up new possibilities for him with Goose
I
because
agree.
you're seeing the toolbox. It just keeps getting bigger. And the more he explores that, I think the more options that they have and the better for the band. And Pancakes was super fun. Rick's playing got very spiritual, as it does for me almost all the time, but especially there. And then the SOS, I'm always arguing that it should be sped up slightly. It sounded like this one was a little bit sped up, or at least Cotter's cymbal work made it feel a little bit sped up. So we were kind of getting it back to like that older pace that it used to be at. So yeah, the Cincy run is just insane, as we'll continue to get into.
Well, and I don't even think we've like briefed the Bob Weir rumor. So the Turn on Your Love Light encore I thought was kind of funny, which I didn't like think about until, I heard the rumor and then I was like, oh, totally. They played like Turn on Your Love Light. And then reflecting back, like that is freaking hilarious that they played that because they knew what they were doing and they played us like a fiddle. That's so funny. And I am a deadhead at heart, so any dead cover at a Goose show is very special. But that's just funny. You can just like that says their personality right there.
I honestly hadn't even put that connection together. That's hilarious. All those rumors were flying. We were getting texts all day from people like, "Can you
I
confirm this? Can you
know.
confirm this?" Oh my gosh.
Well, I was also somebody mentioned I didn't think about this, but the National is from Cincinnati, so I was like thinking maybe they were gonna like have somebody come in with them and play like Blood Buzz, which would have been cool. I was like, that's kind of more realistic. But then also Steve-O from Jackass was in Cincinnati, so I'm like, maybe they're gonna do something crazy with him. Like you just don't know. Like you don't know.
Yeah, and it seemed to be hinted at with Peter saying a few times through the first two shows of the run, like, better stick around for Sunday. It's gonna be
Yes.
special, and it was, but not for the reasons people were speculating about.
Hmm.
Just real quick before we move on to night two, I can't believe I didn't talk about Thatch at all because, like Mike said, unbelievable version. But really, I just wanted to say that this was a perfect encapsulation of what this band has been doing great lately, which is not necessarily exploring a lot of territory on every jam, but they might latch onto like one or two concepts and just squeeze it for every drop you can possibly get out of it with just all kinds of different variations on sound and tone and volume and all of that. So just shout out to the Thatch, really great version. Great way to start off a set. But we go into night two here. We had a shakedown earlier in the day. Let's get into
Hmm.
kind of what the lead up to night two was like and then get into the set.
Saturday was kind of a blur. It was very busy. It was great though. Literally like one of the best days of my life. Everything went so smooth and then, I was ready to celebrate. So I went into night two just ready to get down. So they did not disappoint.
Awesome. Hopefully, lots of merch and hugs and good vibes were exchanged pre show.
Oh my gosh, totally.
And then you got a show after a great time in the afternoon, which is just the best.
Hmm.
So I guess I'll read off this time since I've been making everyone else do my job here as the host. Night 2, we start off set 1 with A Lead the Way, Doc Brown, Hot Love and the Lazy Poet, Draconian Meter Maid, Into Lead Up, then A Feel It Now, Your Ocean, into Arrow to close out set 1. In set 2, we start off with Drive, going into Running Up That Hill, into Jeff Engborg, into Sinnerman, into the Mist, and then into Hot Tea to close out the set. Unbelievable. And then encore of Everything Must Go. It's a futile effort to ask what the highlight of this show is because the entire thing, I literally have notes on every single song, probably like 3 pages of them. So let's get into some thoughts on set 1 as a whole, Kelsey.
Set 1 as a whole, it was a fun set. I feel like the Lead the Way was really, really pretty. Doc Brown, Hot Love are kind of straightforward, but always super fun to hear. Cotter really shines on Hot Love. So, I love when they just let him rip his drum solo on that. Draconian Meter Maid was super pumped to hear that one live. That's really fun. I would have to say my highlight for sure would be Arrow. I think a lot of people probably feel that way. Just that freaking jam was so good. It was, just like typical beginning, but the way that they just take Arrow and shoot it off. I don't know how else to explain it. There's no Arrow that is under 19 minutes, I believe, if I remember that correctly. I think like the way that Peter is just bringing in like this new sound just so delicately, and like you don't even notice it, but it's just like he brings this whole dynamic into the jam so like subtly, and it's just awesome. I don't really know how else to explain it.
Yeah, that Arrow, that's a great highlight. Packed quite a punch. We've gotten some like shorter versions to your point earlier, but not by much, or they've been like split up and like kind of part of a sandwich or something like that.
Right,
But
yeah,
always a long jam, always a banger. Mike, you have any thoughts on this set 1 yourself? Anything you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, continuing the theme, lots of thoughts. Draconian was absolutely amazing. It started off pretty mellow, but Rick like keeps insisting that they push the tempo, and Pete's kind of all too happy to oblige. And they go into this extremely funky vibe with Pete on the clav. And it was really cool for me because watching it back, Rick is like loving the vibe when it switches there and just dancing more than I'd normally see him do. But you've got Jeff on guitar, Cotter in the absolute zone, and it downshifts into this slightly ominous mystical groove with Peter locking into this tight repeating pattern, which led perfectly into Lead Up. And then I'll just echo Kelsey. This Arrow is absolutely outstanding. It started off with sweet, extra crunchy clav that starts working through some kind of filter or delay. Again, Peter just like blowing my mind. He's also playing piano, which, he does this kind of stuff nightly. But lately I found myself extra appreciative of how many different times Peter's playing 2 different ideas, like very different ideas that are totally moving the jam. And then it went into some Dark Goose, and the piano really takes off from there with like a hypnotic feel. And I love that riff that they lock into. So those are my 2 highlights from set 1, but this whole show just rocks.
I feel pretty lucky to have been at Indy with the Doc Brown opener, and then my second Doc Brown here, because they hadn't played it in forever. So when they brought it out at Indy, I was pretty excited about that, and then to get it in Cincy was pretty special. I was at Resonance last year, so I saw Peter do it with Great Blue, and that was so much fun. That set was amazing. Always love a good Doc Brown, so it was cool to see that OG style.
This show is like an encapsulation of some of the best jamming you're going to hear from this band all year. One of the just great monster jam shows of the year. Y'all nailed it on everything. I just wanted to say on Arrow real quick that Your Ocean into Arrow is like, talk about completely opposite tones and feels, but it just works. You got the gorgeous vibes from Your Ocean into this beast of an Arrow. And you talked about the darkness a little bit there, Mike. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the outros we've been getting on Big Modern a little bit before you get into the final chorus, or even like what we heard a little bit from that Mississippi half step from Atlanta with the 2 guitar goose kind of touching on some sinister tones. So just nasty, great vibe to end the set. And the crowd was roaring. That always gives me the goosebumps when you hear the crowd response to a song. So awesome stuff. And then last little note, you guys kind of covered everything, is Meter Maid. Longest version we've gotten so far, become a great jam vehicle. It's moved up to my second favorite of the new songs now. It's kind of been a toss-up between that one and one out, but Draconian Meter Maid's a beast now.
It's so good. It is really fun to hear that one live too. Cotter's just love his voice. his singing is good, and it just brings a really fun element, that I think opens a lot of doors for them, like with original and covers. Like I know we'll touch on this when we get into Sunday, but like just that like Talking Heads vibe, I feel like Cotter really nails that. So I feel like could be very fun for them in the future.
We're both big fans of Let Cotter Sing, especially as a former like scene pop punk kind of kid. He has that vibe to his voice. So
I
I love it.
agree. And that personality, he's just got such good energy.
And that's a good segue into the energy from set 2 here. Another monster set. It's a non-stop set if you look at the official notations by the band. Wow, how do we even want to start here? I mean, I feel like Drive, which is always a highlight, and Hot Tea, which is also a staple of the set, are like the two kind of out of your mind parts with that middle segment that's just insane. But let's get into it. What do you think, Kelsey?
My personal favorite, although this is like a hard choice. I mean, I don't know if I can like group Angborg and Cinderman together. Angborg was probably my favorite of the whole set too. I love that song. It's so funky. The way that they just like, it's just like straight funk, and then they just like bring it down in the middle. That like they just really gets like, I don't know, the wave and of the song. Jeff Enborg is just straight funk for me, and his personality is great too. So Cinderman, I was lucky to get that one at SPAC and Cincy. It's like, I don't know, probably top 5, maybe even like top 3 favorite covers. And then the way Peter transformed that into a total like dance party was unbelievable. And then Mist, it's hard to choose. It's so hard to choose. And then Everything Must Go is like my favorite song overall. And then that little tumble tease in there was pretty cool. The Everything Must Tumble.
Oh, so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So I don't know. I don't know if I did a very good job at that. I tried to pick, but it's also good.
I think you did great, and it's overwhelming, like just how good the show is. So the sentiment of like I can't even explain it in words how good this was is very echoed here as well.
The Running Up That Hill, like I'm glad. I hope they keep that one in the rotation for a while too. That is a great song, and they do a really really good job covering that. And Rick's vocals on that are really amazing.
Yeah, I just gotta say you nailed it on Engborg Cinderman, but that Running Up That Hill I wanted to talk about a little bit because it's only been played a handful of times, but I feel like it's officially become Dripfield's like jam cousin in a way. Very like tribal feel to
Mm-hmm.
that jam, and really kind of captures that unique sound of Goose so well from Dripfield. It's the second vehicle for that, so love it.
That'll be cool if they ever kind of play that back to back or like sandwich it. I think it would be a good like segue. I see what you mean there. Like I feel like that would be a really cool sandwich for them to do that. Got to manifest that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I see you trying to chime in. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, I can actually be more brief on this one. The improv didn't go as out there as some of the other sets here in Cincy, but I will just say, like, briefly, definitely want Running Up That Hill to stick around. I'm pro any of these newer songs that are way more heavy on like the synths and loops, because I just feel like these are some of the songs that give Peter an opportunity to do more of like those DJ techniques I was talking about earlier. So anything like that. And then to get like Running Up That Hill, Jeff Engberg and Cinderman, which he can kind of utilize a lot more of those electronic sounds all in a row. I was also at SPAC like Kelsey, so I remember the amazing dance party for Cinderman at SPAC. I don't know that the dance party in Cincy was like as crazy as I don't know if I'll ever see anything that crazy again as what I saw at SPAC, everyone running around in a circle during Cinderman. But
Well, and it was after that drive that literally like brought me to my knees.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it was just insane placement. I
Sure.
was crying during drive, and then the Cinderman that it brought me to my knees. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
And I think the jam here was actually better than SPAC, even though people may have lost their minds more at SPAC. This Cinderman was absolutely outstanding. Into the Mist is always great. All of them are good. So it was a really great second set. They just didn't go out into space on some of the improv as much as some of the other sets. So
Yeah, and I actually agree with you on that, Mike, that I think this Cinderman was stronger than the one from SPAC. But Jeff Engborg was like so good, it almost like overshadowed the Cinderman. I had to kind of listen back and listen to him separately to really appreciate the Cinderman more because I was still losing my shit over the Jeff Engborg when I was watching it live. Like that little solo section on the collab, Peter was just ripping so hard, they just like let him play by himself for a few seconds there. It was awesome. Great time. Anything else on night 2 before we jump into night 3?
No, I think we covered it.
Awesome. So then we get into night 3, Shohio. This is the hyped up night by Peter, both nights before this, and it did not disappoint in my opinion. So how about you read off the set list for us, Kelsey, since you were there?
Sure. Okay, so we've got night 3, Moonrise acoustic, Dim Lights acoustic, Atlantic City acoustic, A Western Sun half acoustic, and Butter Rum, Born, Spirit of the Dark Horse, My Mind is Consumed by Media, Rockdale, and then set 2 was Wisteria, Psycho Killer, Slow Ready, Redbird, Tumble, and then the encore was Achy Breaky Heart and Factory Fiction.
Don't forget to mention that Achy Breaky Heart was featuring a very special guest. We had
Billy Ray
Cyrus there in the house, aka
the one and only
Trevor in a wife beater. But that was a really cheeky nod, as you mentioned earlier, to all the band reading all the speculation on a special guest, and it was just really funny to see that. But yeah, let's dive into the set 1. Acoustic start unexpectedly, and then it just kind of never let up from there. So yeah, any specific highlights you want to mention?
I was pretty emotional when they started playing. I definitely lost it during Dim Lights through Atlantic City. I was pretty much just like tears streaming the whole time. Dim Lights is one of my absolute favorites. So that was a really big surprise for me, and just I was like having trouble even comprehending. Like it was awesome. We had really, really good seats for that one too. So it was really, really awesome. And everybody around us kind of was also on the same page as far as being able to appreciate that. And you could just feel the like emotions. It was really cool. Always love A Western Sun. And then to see Rick switch midway through and the crowd going crazy on that was so awesome to see and to feel the energy. And it was really fun to go right into Butter Rum, I think, after that. It's so hard for me to choose. Rockdale's one of my like top 3 favorite songs overall, I would say. So I was really hoping for that one. So to get that one as a set closer was really great. Yeah, I think that's really it. I mean, Spirit of the Dark Horse, I think if I remember, they were teasing Born in that one, or is the other way around? Born had Spirit teases. I can't remember exactly, but they were both amazing.
Yeah, they played him off as like interwoven a little bit, kind of going both ways, I felt
Exactly,
like.
yes.
So definitely a great note there on that. You pretty much nailed it on all of this.
The nuances of both were there. I feel like when the whole time they were playing them, and I feel like Spirit of the Dark Horse, it got a little dark, but they brought it back up. And then I think the placement of the swimmer song was kind of cool on that. It just, I don't know, kind of took it from like, made it a little less serious, kind of brought it back into like party mode, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they made it a little cheeky in a way. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Because I feel like it was, I don't know, just a very emotional show or set so far, at least for me, with acoustic and then all that. Just the Born is always a really powerful song for me. So, when they just kind of went back in media, I was just like, okay, like party time.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been toying a little bit with that since they debuted it in Boston in September, where they've added a little bit to the intro and stuff. So it definitely adds to making it a less serious vibe and almost gives it a transition feel, even though there was a kind of a gap between Dark Horse and it. So totally agree with you there.
It's a trippy song. It reminds me of a Talking Head song. Like it sounds really Talking Headsy, and just, I don't know what the word is for it, but I don't want to say whimsical. I don't feel like that's right. It's chaotic in a good way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely got that David Byrne feel to it.
For sure.
Just want to note on the acoustic stuff real quick before I forget, because it's on top of mind, is that Moonrise and Atlantic City were played for the first time since Newport Folk Festival in 2022. So it had been a long time. So we had gotten really much acoustic at a full band show. And then Dim Lights, first time played as Goose officially, but an Arabolo staple. Some of the best songwriting you'll hear from this band. Perfection on the Rick written songs. But yeah, you pretty much nailed it on everything. The only other thing I'll say is, why is Moonrise so underplayed given as an official release?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was on Dripfield. People forget, I feel like, that it was officially released because it's never played.
I would agree with that.
Mike, anything you want to chime in on set 1?
Yeah, Moonrise is awesome. It's based on one of my favorite movies, Moonrise Kingdom. So I agree. I would love to see that more. And I agree with Kelsey. My mind, like as soon as I heard the Consumed by Media song, first thing was like 80s art house, Talking Heads, David Byrne vibes, like for sure. And we'll talk about it in a second, but awesome to get another Talking Heads cover later in the show paired with that.
Hmm.
But I really like this butter rum. I really dig the riff that Pete locks into at the beginning, and that kind of like propels it forward. And the pattern that they build off of that is just a major earworm for me. And it got really funky at the end when he moved to the vintage vibe. And I thought the Born was really stellar as well. It kind of started off in like an eerie space underwater sounds from Peter and amazing bass line from Tweaks as it builds. Love all the variety and Cotter's playing. And then when they move to piano, Peter does, and they've changed his progression. It winds up like in a darker groove, which kind of married with Dark Horse pretty much perfectly. So, and last thing is this Rockdale. It was pretty awesome. It starts out as its typical funky self at first, but Pete finds this like hypnotic repeating pattern, which has been like a theme lately, and they move into this like psych rock space, and the tension at the end was just absolutely insane, and I had goosebumps there. So as far as like set one closers go, that Rockdale was it.
Yeah, nailed it. Rockdale, another song to note in 2024, is just another song of 2024, I feel like. And this one touched a little bit on that Westville version's darkness, but didn't quite get there. They pulled out of it pretty quickly, but in like the best kind of way. Yeah. And then speaking of seamless transitions too, I totally forgot to talk about A Western Sun, because the way that they switched from Rick kind of doing his best Julian Lodge on acoustic impression, clearly he's been watching his social media with a lot of acoustic posts lately, I feel like. And then letting Peter and Cotter kind of take over to allow for a seamless transition over into, we haven't even talked about the Dracula, the new guitar yet that was
Oh
debuted.
my gosh.
I can't believe I forgot that.
And the fact that Rick busted his string during SOS on Friday too, like, and it was just like seamless. Like he's just like, no one's gonna notice. That was crazy. I thought he like kind of just like flubbed a little bit, and wow, he is good at what he does.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That is skills.
I can't believe we forgot to talk about that. But that was just absolutely crazy.
I think Cotter also, I didn't see it, but I think somebody I was with pointed out that like Cotter busted a drum head or something too. They had to like replace something. I forget, maybe during Big Modern, but it was like kind of one of those things where you just kind of see somebody slip in and they fix it and slip back out, and
yeah,
pretty seamless. But they were bringing it.
Yeah, shout out to the crew, because the snare almost had to be held together as Cotter was finishing out the song, and then they kind of could replace it after that. So pretty incredible stuff by our friendly crew for Goose. And yeah, getting back to night 3 here, but just insane. We forgot about some of those crazy highlights. Yeah, seamless transitions, once again, the name of the game, even in the middle of songs where you're going from acoustic to electric.
And Trevor stuck with his acoustic bass throughout the whole Western Sun though, so my dad is a bass player and I had never seen a bass like that. So of course I like sent him a picture and he nerded out, immediately sent me like the model and everything. So that was kind of cool because I had never really seen an acoustic bass before. I guess I didn't recognize it. So, I asked the man himself and my dad gave me all the info on it, which was kind of cool.
We got to have him on the pod. I wish we had known beforehand.
Oh, I know. He thinks Trevor's just the coolest, so which he is.
That makes him perfectly qualified to be on this podcast. We're Trevor fans here.
For sure.
Yeah. Anything else on set 1? Sorry, I feel like I cut y'all off with the Dracula talk, but
I think that covers it for me.
Okay, awesome. So set 2 here. Start off with the really solid Wisteria Lane. Kind of stayed true to its using the jam band turn type 1 zone. But again, like I had said before, kind of latched onto these motifs that you get from Wisteria and just milked them for everything they're worth in the 15 minutes it lasted. And then Psycho Killer, highlighting Cotter. Awesome cover. We can get into that more in a little bit. But I really feel like this whole set revolved around this monster of a Redbird. 26 minutes long, longest version of all time. Did not feel this long listening to it live or on re-listens at all. Maybe a little bit hasty, but this one will definitely be going on my Jam of the Year playlist here at some point. But super high energy coming right into this jam. And then Cotter's just kind of doing this splashy cymbal thing, surgical precision on it. Rick is ripping a very classic rock sound and drop down eventually into this deep space zone. And it's just beautiful. I don't want to get into it too much without letting y'all talk about it more. I just think that Redbird is the gem of this show, in my opinion. So, Kelsey, how about you? What'd you think about this set too? What really stuck out to you?
Well, just to like add on to the Redbird Jam, I took a little note here that it's funny that this came up, but it had the Legend Valley Flowdown vibes for a minute in there. It really reminded me of that sound. I think it was kind of like towards the end of the jam, but just that like beautiful keys, and Peter just really shines on the keys in this song so much. Wisteria, that had this little like groove in it in the jam that just like hooked me. It was really, really good. I always loved Wisteria. It's just like such a classic, just like one of my first favorite Goose songs. And like kind of like with Arcadia, I've heard Arcadia a lot live, and Wisteria I haven't heard it as much. So it's always a treat, I feel like, to get Wisteria. Slow Ready was really cool. The lights that Getty was doing during Slow Ready was insane, because he had like these two like light strips above Peter, and it just like kind of looked like the lights were like coming out of the keyboard when Peter was doing his little like synthy, like, second half of the song. It was really cool. Always love a Slow Ready. Trevor and Tumble, I would say, is a big highlight for me. He's always great during Tumble, but like he really was bringing it in this Tumble. And that's just like a really great way to end the show, in my opinion. I love Tumble and the meaning behind Tumble, and just a good way for them to end the Cincy run.
Yeah, especially the main sets in specific, but yeah, just awesome set too. Mike, you have anything you want to highlight outside of what we've talked about?
Just a couple quick things. Wisteria was super awesome. It started out hot out of the gates. I love the effects specifically that Pete is using on this Wisteria at first. He's got like some kind of like reverb or delay, and the tone almost sounds like Khruangbin. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that band. Because it's got like an Eastern feel to his guitar on that, which I thought was really cool. And it like finished very high energy, but they had like a steady, patient approach to get there. And then obviously the Redbird was like maybe the best ever. I think that it was just absolutely insane, the space they found themselves in there. And the Bliss section especially was heavenly. So not too much more to add other than that.
Yeah, that heavenly is the right word for that ending of Redbird there. And it's another example of a great full band crescendo where the whole band's kind of being highlighted. Kelsey, you mentioned that Peter on the keys was really stuck out to you. And yeah, he went back to that vintage vibe that he uses to start Redbird off, which you don't always see in the Redbird jams. And it really led to just a beautiful full band, circular crescendo to the finish line.
Like love and light. That's I don't know how else to say it. It's just a very love and light sound in that jam.
Yeah. And you mentioned Slow Ready mid-set. That's a treat. And Tumble, really great version of Tumble, again, to continue the year of Tumble. And, you have an encore with special guest Trevor on Achy Breaky Heart and Factory Fiction. But I feel like the second set outshined the encore in a lot of ways, even with the Factory Fiction. Always killer to get. But yeah, just a monster of a close to the show.
Yeah, Factory Fiction is always a big highlight. I've gotten a couple times. Red Rocks last year was really, really fabulous, and I would say that's probably my favorite Factory Fiction still to date. But I love a Factory Fiction encore. It's just such a high energy way to end the show, and just kind of like I feel like you carry that energy with you, after that show. It's just such a high energy song, and I'm a lyric person, so like it has a really special meaning to me, and they kind of leave you with that, and that's when you want to go on tour and buy more tickets. And yeah.
Oh yeah.
that feeling.
I was gonna say, yeah, to close the show with Factory Fiction is unbelievable. The only thing I'll say is, if they had left themselves a little more time, they were just feeling Redbird so much it went long. I would love to see them explore Factory Fiction, like a longer version, like you had highlighted before. That'd be awesome, because they were going places with it and they had to cut it short because of the curfew for the venue. So
there was also, I think there was 2 and maybe Jive Lee on the set list for Sunday too that got cut. So they were really feeling ambitious, I think. And then that Redbird, they just took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, worth it for sure.
100%. I would agree.
Anything else to add, Mike?
Yeah, just one thing about that Redbird. Something I've been noticing lately is when they do go for these giant epic jams that have like multiple sections, like 4 or 5 different like musical ideas that they're exploring, the transitions are just getting out of control from one idea to another, and they're just becoming, I mean, they already were like my favorite band at doing this type of stuff, but they're just becoming like even more of experts at just figuring out how to just effortlessly go from one musical idea to the next and just make it sound completely seamless for the listener. So the polish in this band is just reaching ever increasing highs.
Definitely agreed with that.
Yeah, so that's Shohio, Cincinnati. Never gonna miss a 3-night run there again. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I suggest you do not. Cincinnati brings it.
Yeah, so I almost felt like a little anticlimactic after such a high Shohio, but we had to go to DC where they did not let up the gas, in my opinion, at all. Went to the beautiful Anthem in the Wharf District of Washington, D.C., relatively new venue. A lot of big acts have played there, so Goose had some big shoes to fill, and they delivered. So we start off night one there with Dr. Darkness, Earthling or Alien, then Seekers on the Ridge Part 1 and Part 2, then get an Echo of a Rose sandwich with Echo, then Blood Buzz Ohio, then Bob Dawn, back into Echo, and then close out set 1 with So Ready. And then set 2, we start off with Eminence Front, Hunger Sight, You Spin Me Round Like a Record, into Pancakes, into Loose Ends, back into Pancakes, and then close out with This Old Sea, into Animal, and an encore of Peggy O. So where do we want to start here? Mike, let's start with you this time. Any highlights from set 1?
Yeah, this ERA is absolutely awesome. I love having a jam vehicle that early in the set. I think that's a really cool way to mix it up for set 1, but this one was really cool. I thought Trevor was taking really interesting lines. I thought Peter and Rick combined forces to create this multi-layered and complex arrangement with so much echo and reverb that there were definitely times I couldn't tell which one was playing or where the sound was coming from. And it was really cool because it does something different than ERA typically does. They have this very like gradual change to like a more blissy ending, but it just happens very slowly. It takes patience to like another level because I mean they're just little bit of the elements at a time, and then you kind of just like blink and you're like, oh my gosh, we're like in a blissy space now in ERA instead of just sticking with that like straightforward funk. So that was really fun for me. It may be my favorite ERA of the year. I need to start making a playlist of ERAs to like confirm that, but I just thought it was really great. And then I really think Blood Buzz is just an awesome cover. Bob Dawn is one of the best songs in the catalog, and they should definitely play that more. And getting it to go back into Echo, I thought was a really cool, smooth transition by Rick. And, you know, he's my favorite guitar player. He just blows my mind at every show. So, yeah, really great set 1.
Yeah, how about you, Kelsey? Any highlights that stuck out to you?
When I saw the set list, I'm curious if you guys feel this way. It seems a little symbolic, like the Dr. Darkness opener. I don't know, just like Earthling or Alien. It just, I don't know if, you know, just with the state of our country and everything, it's like the weirdness. I feel like was kind of symbolic through their set list. But, the Blood Buzz, I thought was kind of funny, like just kind of like comedic timing on that, you know, because you would have expected that in Ohio, and obviously they didn't. But I'm glad they did that. That song is awesome, and I hope that everybody just gets to experience it because I love it, and it's really cool that they do like OSU colors during it. So you know, it's just like anytime I hear it when I'm not at like a Cincy show, like it's like a hug. I just love it. The Echo had Green River teases in it. I think I picked up on, which was really cool. Bob Dawn. The Bob Dawn was like jammed out a little bit, and I'm here for that. Bob Dawn's always a good one. It hits me in the feels, and I kind of feel like that also plays into theme they were kind of trying to convey. And then So Ready is always fun as a set closer.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. They were definitely making a subtle statement, I feel like, through the set list with the themes of the songs, and y'all really nailed the highlights of this set, in my opinion. That ERA, Mike had me take a second, listen to it, and I'm glad I did because it's like the definition of type 2 jam Goose. Definitely a different space than we're used to with it, and it's getting better and better with every listen. So definitely gonna have to consider where I'm gonna seed that for my Gym of the Year.
It's fun to see these songs change, you know, with the band. So Peter's, you know, absorbing all of these new techniques as far as like, you know, the looping and everything, and it's just all of these little elements they are really just bringing it in, and it's bringing so much like texture to these songs when you go back and listen, you know, to the earlier versions to now. It's just all of these like little, I don't know, like nuances, and it's really just like creating a whole new dynamic for these songs. It's really cool to see.
Oh yeah, most definitely. The creativity is on display, whether it's in the jams and the way that they're taking these with new motifs, or just in the set list writing with this sandwich. It's one of these shows where you listen to that set one, and it's not necessarily anything that's super crazy jammed out besides the Earthling or Alien, but it just flies by, and you notice like this band's just going different places every night. So a great start to DC, and then we get into the set two, which also has some monster stuff to talk about. I don't even know where to start with this. How about we start with you this time, Mike? What did you think of set two?
Well, I love Eminence Front as a set two opener. I got that at the private show in Charlotte a couple weeks ago, and I think that just absolutely slaps every time. Hunger Site lately, like for the last month or two, Hunger Site has been so angry. It feels like that song is roid raging, but I kind of love it. I'm kind of here for it. It's super aggressive, and you've got like all those like machine gun rapid fire runs from Rick during it, which is just so fun. And You Spin Me Round is like we've got to make a campaign for this song to stick. It goes back to like what I was talking about, like the heavy synth space where Peter can really just kind of go off the wall and throw in whatever he wants. It's so fun and interesting to listen to, and it's really cool because Trevor sings really hard on that one too. Like it feels like the whole band is involved a little bit more on the vocals. So that may actually be my bingo pick at Goosemas because I'm just such a big fan of that cover, and I really, really want it to stick around. Pancakes, Loose End Pancakes is just absolutely insane stuff. I cannot imagine how hard I would have been dancing if I was at the show during that section because holy crap, they brought it there. And then Peggy O in the encore. I mean, a big fan of this show. It was a really interesting set list, a lot of variety, and to Kelsey's point, just doing different little things at every show.
Yeah. So Kelsey, how about we dive in with your highlights from set two? I mean, they start off with a statement, like you said.
Right, for sure, definitely. Eminence Front is also one of my faves, but that Hunger Site was it was monster. The beginning gave me like that I can see clearly now the rain is gone. But then they like bring this whole dark jam into it, and it's just such a cool dynamic there. Like they have been jamming the crap out of Hunger Site. I would have to agree with the You Spin Me Right Round. I've been a big fan of that song ever since The Wedding Singer. Like that was my first memory of that song, and it's so fun. And I think that backtrack, I guess if that's the right word, gives Peter a lot of space and like space to play with, I guess, that's like right up his alley right now. So that's pretty cool. And then yeah, Peggy O Encore is always special. So that one's a tearjerker for me.
It's the perfect encore song, especially when they're in a time crunch like this. I believe
Mm-hmm.
Jive 2 was the original song on the set list, if I remember right. I might be mixing up shows, but they went with Peggy O, and
Well, it makes sense. It keeps getting bumped.
yeah, great stuff. Y'all nailed it on all of this. I think the dark twinged hunger site theme is going to continue for a long time. It's kind of been the theme of this
Mm-hmm.
year. And we almost got a very adjacent to the Winston-Salem show that Mike and I saw, kind of 80s hair metal, power chordy riffing outro. But I think, like y'all said, You Spin Me Around was just the main gem of this set for me too. A large part of the jam on this one kind of revolves around Cotter, interestingly enough, who's kind of doing this like flowing, glam heavy rhythm with Peter and Trevor and Rick kind of all playing around him. And at one point, it sounded to me, and I don't know if y'all heard it, but it sounded like Peter was almost playing the Sinnerman riff during this jam to kind of keep it like as a dance
Mm-hmm.
party. So kind of took that all the way to the finish line to have this like triumphant, positive feeling, dancey vibe going. So loved it. So anything else on night one before we get into night two?
Real quick before we move on, I just wanted to like the pancakes. One of the interesting things about it to me is that pancakes a lot of times this year has ended up in like that celestial ethereal space. This one was cool to me because they did go there, but there was like an undercurrent of darkness underneath it, which added like this interesting like subtext to it. And then they just kind of like pivot into like what I'll call like a Delta adjacent jam. It's kind of in the same vibe as the Delta Jam, but it was its own thing a little bit. It was a very standout pancakes to me, so I just wanted to make sure I shouted that out before we moved on.
Yeah, it's kind of, we've talked about it a few times today, where you have like one of the highlights of the show right next to the other highlight, and like you listen to that, You Spin Me Around, and you're like, oh my god, this is unbelievable. We haven't heard anything like this yet. And then Pancakes comes, amazing version, but you're like still latched on to like that unique thing you had just heard just before. So
Mm-hmm.
they've just been killing it so much. It's like so hard to pick highlights out. Like we started off this podcast thinking we'd just cover one or two songs per set, and it's like the entire thing is a highlight. So awesome stuff.
It's a good problem to have, right?
Definitely a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into night two here, Mike. You want to read off the set?
Absolutely. So it starts off with Atlas Dogs, Silver Rising, Turn Clouds, Big Modern, Into Whip It, and then I Would Die For You, Salt, and Give It Time. And set 2 does Yeti, Pumped Up Kicks, Shamalama Ding Dong, Back Into Yeti, Thatch, Dripfield, and then a Bananas encore of Empress, Big Modern, Empress. So I don't know that we have enough time to cover this.
Saying don't forget that 726 before Dripfield too. Just shout out to that real quick. But yeah, where do we want to start? Mike, how about you start off with your thoughts on set 1 or wherever you want to start, I guess.
Well, I will just start off by saying these first 3 songs are an elite 3 songs to start a show. I think that that's like almost as good as it gets as far as like openers go. Big Modern continuing to do new things with that. It had like a slow, smooth, bluesy feel to start this time before moving into like funkier section. And then after that, it was like semi-blissy up tempo section with Peter on marimba, and they kind of wander through another bliss section, and it was just so much going on rhythmically, but very pleased with just how out there Big Modern continues to be. It seems like they can take it any direction that they want to at this point, and it was just really dense rhythmically, which made it super interesting. Yeah, so big set 1.
Yeah. Anything that stuck out to you, Kelsey?
I always love the I Would Die For You cover. It's always a fave of mine. I think the Alice Dog Silver Rising together is I like those played back to back. I feel like they flow really well together, and I have to agree that Atlas Dog Silver Rising Turn Clouds, like that's a hell of a way to start a show right there. It's like I feel like if especially if it's like Atlas Dogs and Silver Rising, if you've never seen Goose before, like I feel like if I was going in blind and I heard those 2 songs, like I'd be sold right there just because of Rick's vocals on Silver Rising. But yeah, Give It Time is always a fave. I love these like the Whip It, these little like covers that they're bringing in to bridge kind of big monster vehicle, like jam vehicles are pretty cool. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add on that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
no worries. There's so much we've talked about already. It's like,
I know.
especially coming off that Cincinnati run, it's like this doesn't feel like it has as much to talk about despite being excellent shows, just because there was so much to that Cincinnati run. But I really, going off of what you and Mike said, the Big Modern, calling for it to be mid-set versus a set opener and closer like it has been lately was really interesting. And I think this one, in a lot of ways, might have even topped the Cincinnati one. I thought that you could really hear, surprisingly, you could really hear Jeff in this one playing rhythm guitar really loud and clear. And Peter, once again, just crushing it. He was bouncing around different spots on his rig, but I really liked what he was doing with his vintage vibe, like we had talked about on Redbird earlier. And yeah, Trevor was loud and clear on this one. It was really a unique, different sound to Big Modern than we've heard before, and they keep trying to one up themselves with this song, and they're continuing to succeed, in my opinion. So another great full band jam on this one. And then in terms of everything else with this set, I thought it was just a killer run of typically shorter songs. I was really surprised after Salt, which just ripped, that they had another song in store with Give It Time to close out the set, because I thought for sure after that electric Salt that would close out the set. But no, Give It Time, great sing-along way to close out the set and take us into another highlight-packed set 2. Where we want to start with this set 2? How about we start with you this time, Kelsey?
Sure. The Yeti Pumped Up Kicks Shamalama was all pretty seamless together. I thought how that just kind of flowed together. Yeti it's always like fun to hear. It's not one of like my favorites, but then I love when they always like kind of throw some stuff in there, like the Pumped Up Kicks and the Shamalama. That was really cool to hear together. The Thatch and then like 726, the juxtaposition of those 2 songs together is really awesome, because Thatch is just so dirty and they always really bring it down on that one, and then 726 is always so pretty, and those 2 together just back to back I feel like is a good little dynamic there. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And then Dripfield, I flipping love Dripfield, so
And I think we'll talk about this encore separately because it's such a monster.
that's why I kind of stopped. I was like, I'm gonna stop there because we'll make that its own topic.
It's one of the all-time greats. But really quick note on 726, you mentioned it. Last time it was played was in Boston, night 3, I believe. Yeah, night 3. And I was there for that show, and that was the longest gap in between 726 plays of all time. So really nice to see it back. But yeah, just really, really great, well-flowing set. That Yeti sandwich, people had been kind of on Twitter and stuff being negative about how it's going into pumped up kicks every time lately, but adding in that unique flair of shamalama in there too was really nice. And it was a 20 plus minute jam party. So dance party, great time. 726 in a drip field. I feel like that's one of the all-time great things you can get at a show. So anyone who was here for this set too, hard to be disappointed by it. Mike, any thoughts?
I love Yeti and Pumped Up Kicks, so I hope that them adding Shamalama was a middle finger to the internet critics. So I hope it stays that way. But this thatch was really, really cool. It had like kind of a sparse approach to start, but quickly rises up to a real nice funky place. And Trevor was absolutely standout on this song. He was so creative. He was sometimes directly assisting the melody and then sometimes directly assisting the drums and then other times standing out on his own. Just really loved and noticed Trevor very heavy on this thatch. And a lot of great additions from Jeff too, which I think we could have probably mentioned Jeff a little bit more on each of these last few shows. His contributions have really been standing out the last run here.
Yeah. I think a large part of that is a new stage arrangement too. I think that's really helped.
I was about to say the same.
Yeah.
I think just the energy overall, they're vibing together better because of that. I think they can like see each other better, and overall communication is, I think, just optimal in that position. Maybe that's the right way to put it.
Yeah, and you often see critics of Jeff online talking about the negativity you see online, and I thought this show was a really great show for him in terms of you can actually hear him a lot. They often gets kind of lost in the shuffle, and they just found a great way to highlight everyone with this new arrangement. I think most notably getting into the encore, highlighted by one of the big Jeff songs, and it had been a while since we heard this, since Halloween, Empress of Organos. Awesome stuff, and we make our set list posts. I was texting with Mike about this, joking about it, but we make our set list posts. I'm like, oh, cool, Empress Encores, be sweet. Publish the post. You like get ready to put it online, and then surprise, we're gonna finish out this big modern we didn't finish during the main set. Make a sandwich out of it. Absolutely killer, long encore here. They blew past curfew time. I think the show went till about 11:45. So, what do we think about this sandwich here, Mike?
It was absolutely awesome. The jamming on all of this is really, really good stuff. But I think the coolest thing about it was that they are smart enough and they know that everyone's like a little bit disappointed by Big Modern being unfinished. And right when you've actually forgotten about Big Modern, it comes back when you're least expecting it. So I just think that's so fun by Goose to do that. And if you're closing out a tour, like why not have the longest encore?
I agree wholeheartedly with everything you just said. Like the putting that like breakdown of Big Modern in between Empress is a great move, because everybody's already like, Empress is such a happy song and you're already grooving and getting down, and then that they just go to that heavy part and you're like, oh, it's lovely, it's tasty, I love it so much. You're just a good way to like just end the show, and like I said before, keep that energy going with you. Like they really they know what they're doing. They really know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's seamless from like that optimistic, happy, great vibes Empress extended jam kind of to end it, that goes right into like that creepy, crawly, dark, Big Modern vibe that takes us into the last chorus. And then, you think they're going to play that chorus and then maybe finish the show. No, they do like a 10-minute jam on the back end of that last Big Modern chorus and then take it back into Empress. So it's like, just when you think you're like, okay, it's a cool Empress into Big Modern. Nope, back into Empress, and just take this roof off the place, blow the doors off the venue, and one of the most creative, cool encores you could get. Awesome way to close out the tour. We were texting back and forth, Mike and I, like during the show, like, oh, this is a great show, but where is that like special tour closer, unique moment?
The fireworks.
Yeah, and the end of the set from 726 on, just that was it.
Yep. You're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. So that closes out the fall tour. Now we got 5 kind of special event shows going on between Soulshine, Goosemas, and the New Year's Eve run. Really going to be an awesome time. The band has a well-deserved break between now and Soulshine, and then a longer one between then and Goosemas. So really looking forward to what they do to close out the year. Are you going to any of those shows, Kelsey?
Unfortunately not. I have little ones at home, so just kind of this time of year is really hard to try to travel. I wish I was. I have the FOMO. I went to Goosemas last year at Hampton. It was super cool.
And Mike was there.
So hoping, it was awesome. It was really cool. That was my first time there. So that venue was great. I worked the Western Sun table on Saturday, so I got to kind of absorb the community in that way. And then, have an amazing killer show that night. It was so cool.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on night 2, Mike, before we close it out, or ready to get into our TED Talk with Kelsey here?
Well, let's TED Talk it up.
So I want to highlight you, Jively Designs. So let's start off first with like your musical journey overall and how it led you to Goose.
Sure. I have been kind of in the jam scene since about 2008. I went to Rothbury Music Festival. That was my first music festival, which was kind of great because it was like a combination of the music that I was into at the time, kind of like the more John Mayer, Dave Matthews kind of stuff. And then I saw like Sound Tribe for the first time, and it was just like a really great introduction to the scene. My first Goose show was 2020, and it was the last show like before kind of COVID took everything down. So it was the Madison Theater. They opened for Pigeons, and that was the first time I saw Goose and fell in love. And then I went down the rabbit hole during COVID. So just like YouTube, everything I could find. And then I can't remember if that was like kind of around when Alive and Well came out, but Alive and Well is just pretty much like what sealed the deal. I fell in love with them. So it's kind of what got me to Goose.
Hell yeah. Best time to kind of dive in when you
Yeah.
have nothing to do but sit at home and watch Goose.
I know. And they really, those like early days, they did it right. You know, they did the Live from Out There festival, I think it was like what it was called. And it was just like the stream, like the couch tour streaming festival. And then they were just like putting shows up on YouTube left and right, I feel like. And it just, it worked really well for them because that's what got me hooked. I couldn't, you know, devour it fast enough. Every YouTube video I was watching as soon as they put up, and they did it right.
Yeah, they absolutely nailed it. I don't think any band really handled it better than them, honestly. They were kind of the standard bearer at the time.
I would agree.
So how about the origins of Jively Designs? How did we get to Jively?
Yeah, so I was actually in school for real estate, and I got my real estate license, and I was learning to use Canva for that purpose, like social media and all that stuff. And I kind of really loved the, you know, idea of creating Goose designs and stuff. And I kind of started playing around on Canva, but I didn't love that I was using other people's design, like clip arts and stuff like that. So I pretty much dedicated myself to learning like Adobe Illustrator software and started pretty much like just educating myself on how I can get my ideas from my head to a computer and, you know, to Goose fans. And then Jive Lee, the name actually, Lee is my daughter's middle name, but she is named after a friend of mine that passed away. And she was Maddie Lee and my daughter is Magnolia Lee. So that little namesake, I guess, kind of gives my Jive Lee mission. She passed away from suicide. So mental health is a really, really big passion of mine to kind of like we had Ohio Suicide Foundation Prevention Foundation at our flow down last week. And if you kind of look back on some of my art, it's just a theme that I try to incorporate and just make sure everybody knows that there's support no matter where you need it. And especially within this community, it's been really awesome to be able to bring that light into a community I care about so much.
That is absolutely amazing that you've kind of honored your friend in that way and taken a tragedy and tried to make something important and spread the message that way. So I'd love to hear that sad story, but you've managed to make something beautiful out of it.
It's very therapeutic to be able to bring light out of a really dark situation and hopefully keep her name around and use it to help people, you know, especially right now. I think a lot of people are struggling with their mental health and there's just like not enough resources at all. And even just within the Goose community, if we can create, you know, support and within our little, you know, family, that's all I care about. That's my mission.
Echoing what Alex said, what a great mission. And at this time of year is definitely when a lot of folks are really struggling. So more important message than ever. Kind of piggybacking off of that, what does your creative process look like? Like, where do you find a lot of your inspiration for your designs and things?
Definitely, I get big surges of creativity after runs. It's a combination of feeling, I think, motivated by the music, but also the connections that I make on these journeys and runs. Like SPAC was unbelievable. The connections that I just made, that energy really, like, it's almost like it just burns inside of me until I have to get it out. And that's kind of where my art comes into play. I can physically take the energy that Goose gives me and put it into like a physical form. And yeah, I it's kind of weird because I've been working backwards. I didn't have an art background at all growing up. Music has always kind of been my thing. I've played instruments and stuff, but never like pen to paper. So it was like an imposter syndrome when I started doing this. And like, I was basically like drafting these designs on my computer, whereas like normal people were like sketching them out beforehand. And like, I don't know, just working backwards and then like having to accept that is my individual process versus what it looks like for everybody else. You know what I mean? That's kind of been part of my journey too, is just realizing that this is my journey, not everybody else's. So I think I answered that.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. And we kind of went through a little bit of the same thing, starting a podcast with the whole imposter syndrome and, just kind of accepting that, our path may not look like everyone else's. So yeah, I think that's great perspective.
Yeah, it's just been really amazing too, the support from the artist community too. Like we've kind of created this support group. We've got like group texts on Instagram, and just like I have group texts with some the girl artists that I'm very close with, and we have created this awesome like atmosphere basically for us to just exercise our creativity however we need to. And it's been really, really amazing. And I think we're all just kind of like playing off of each other at this point. So it's really cool to see. And then it's really cool to see Goose supporting it too.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue into another question we had, which is what are your overall thoughts on the art scene within the Goose community, and what's it been like to watch it grow since you've been part of the community for as long as you have?
It's been amazing. I think a lot of the artists have the same energy as I was kind of feeling when I did my first vending experience at the Atlanta run, when Caroline from Rising Tide, she hosted a big event at Sweetwater. And I think we all kind of have the energy that we feel like we need to carry this on. There's like this, like Fish and the Dead have like their whole like shakedown thing. And it's like, we really just want to keep bringing that energy in with us. But also I think that like the Goose community, we're trying to do things like raise money for different causes and stuff like that. And it's not just like people setting up art on Shakedown. We're trying to really bring, just good things out of it too. So it's been really awesome to see everybody bringing their own individual creativity too. We all have this passion and it's all fueled by Goose. It's very cool.
It's a beautiful thing, especially with a growing band like this, to just be able to have your mark in the community so prominently like that. That's amazing.
It is very cool. And we all just like kind of lift each other up, and it doesn't seem like anybody has any like jealousy or ill feelings. We're not trying to sell more shirts than the next person or whatever, we're literally just like bouncing ideas off of each other and collaborating, and it's beautiful to watch. Honestly, it's really, really cool.
Yeah. So you had talked a little bit about you have a group chat with some of the other women artists in the community. It's often a very bro-y scene in the jam band scene. So like, what are some of the biggest challenges or most encouraging parts you've seen out of the community as kind of a prominent woman in this community, and your presence on the scene being so forward, especially on social media?
Yeah, it is an interesting position to be in, I would say, because part of like I don't know if I want to say style, but kind of my vision for my, Jively and my store and everything, I'm trying to bring this like female energy into a male dominated world, as far as like the posters and the merch and all this. Like they're beautiful, but they're just, some of them are very masculine. And like when I did the shirt for Western Sun, the Goose shirt that got released and everything, it was very, very well received by women because it was just like a simple design that was just not like crazy dinosaurs on acid and like party disco ball. Like, I don't even know, you know what I mean? It was just like something very simple and streamlined. And I think like the girlies, they really want that kind of stuff. But it's hard because I even like get caught up in making designs, and I'm like, what's going to sell? Like, I hate like looking at it that way, but it's like the men buy more merch. Like, it's just kind of like it is what it is. So it's kind of difficult to try to keep the balance, and especially like bringing the feminine energy into my art without just like blasting it like too much. I don't know. The girlies are thriving though. They are thriving in the fan art scene, like just killing it. So I'm very proud.
Yeah, I mean, those are some of our favorite accounts to follow and keep up with y'all, and it's such a supportive community. Especially the women in the art scene, like we found them to be some of the most supportive, and we want to give y'all a voice on our podcast anytime you want.
We always appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, and we'd love to have you back again. This has been an awesome episode, but we're not done yet. Is there anything that you hope to see in the future, in terms of having women's voices highlighted more in the Goose community, or what are like some goals for the future, I guess?
I just want to see this community grow, and I think the support is there for us, which is really, really cool. Like, I don't know if it's like Goose fans in general or jam band fans in general, but I think that they want to see us women like kick ass, so just kind of I guess supporting us, in whatever way that looks like. Yeah, I guess I just want to see support for us in this scene, because it's hard. It is very masculine dominated, and we're doing our best, and we're trying really hard to bring that energy in without being, overbearing. So
of course, and hopefully none of that toxicity you often see from the bros in the jam scene is leaching through, although I'm sure it is, even in passive aggressive ways.
I see a little bit of that. I love that females are having a voice in that aspect, with like Groove Safe and everything too. I think that's really cool. Goose obviously has like more of a female fan base. I think that plays a part in like what's kind of happening with like the art scene within Goose. Just like the fact that there's more females in general, like that's gonna play a part, I think, in all the merch and stuff. So
awesome. And then I guess that's a good segue to take it back into Goose. We like to ask this question to everybody. What does Goose mean to you?
oh my goodness. Love. I mean, just complete like acceptance. Goose has allowed me to truly step into like my authentic self, and like has shown me how to like love myself. And I know that sounds so corny, but it's what I truly believe like Everything Must Go is about. Like that is like my love letter to myself, and that's what Goose means to me. Goose has allowed me to really just step into who I truly am.
Amazing. Yeah, that's very well said. Way more poignant than Mike and I could ever come up with.
I could not love that any more than I do.
I mean, honestly, like before Jive Lee and before Goose, like I had never even traveled really anywhere like by myself, and then Atlanta, I set my entire booth up, by myself. And I mean, I had some help, but you know what I mean? Like I did it all by myself. Like I was terrified a year ago to drive through the city of Atlanta. And I woke up the morning of it, I just woke up, got in my car and did it and sold my art. And it was like it was nothing. Like that's because of Goose. I would have never been able to do that without them. So they don't know that, but they're changing lives out here. So
that's absolutely amazing, and hopefully they do hear it. Like that's the goal, is to highlight fans like yourself or people doing amazing things for the community like you. And yeah, hopefully the word gets out. I know that some of the band members are aware of us now, just from hearing through the grapevine.
I think so. I think they can pick up on our energy too, and they know, they can pick up that energy, and they give us, they let us know.
Awesome. So we like to close out the show with rapid fire questions. Mike and I will just go back and forth.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
A little silly, just loose. No pressure here. So I guess we'll start off with, what's your favorite Goose song?
Everything Must Go. It's an easy one.
And how about your favorite show that you've been to?
I would have to probably go with Atlanta night 2. I think just the Fox was an awesome venue, and the whole run was amazing. But just night 2 was very cool. I think that's my favorite.
I was hoping you were going to say night 2.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Atlanta, by the way, and I'm so sad I've moved away and missed those shows.
Cool. Atlanta was amazing. I fell in love with that city that weekend. Like not only were the shows amazing, the customer service at the venue was awesome. The venue was beautiful. Like food was great. Everything about that run was just perfect.
Yeah. Fox Theater is a gorgeous venue. I'm so glad you got to go and share your art with everyone there and have a great time.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really great.
So favorite jam of all time, whether you were there or not?
Ooh, I'm gonna probably have to go with the 31022 Rockdale.
Awesome.
The Cleveland show. I think that one has to be my favorite.
Great call.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think you already touched on this a little bit earlier, but favorite band or music besides Goose?
Tough call. I used to be a huge SCS9 fan. These days, I would say Lotus is probably my number two. Biscuits is pretty close behind. I just saw Billy Strings for not the first time, but like the first time that I really like got it. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I would say Lotus is definitely my number two. Jamtronica,
Awesome.
girly at heart for sure.
I love them.
Me too.
We got to get you out to All Good Now Festival, clearly, because STS9's playing one of the late night
I know.
shows,
I
and
know.
there's a great lineup. So,
Mm-hmm.
kind of piggybacking off of that, where do you hope to see Goose one day? Concert venue you want to see him at, or dream venue, or anything like that?
That's a tough call. I don't know. It would have been Red Rocks, but I accomplished that. The Gorge comes to mind because I've never been there. I think that would be pretty cool. I don't know. Maybe like Sohani somewhere. That venue is really cool. So to see Goose there would be really cool.
Great calls.
Can I just say Legend Valley? I want them to come back to Legend Valley. That's like
Yeah.
that's my biggest one. Come back to Legend Valley, guys.
Okay. Awesome.
That's about all I got, I think.
And what is your favorite concert venue? Is it Andrew Brady or
Like just in general?
yeah, for Goose?
I would have to say, I don't know, SPAC was really, really cool. The fact that it was like in a park was really, really pretty. Red Rocks,
Yeah, that
obviously.
part was crazy.
I would have to say, if we're excluding Red Rocks, SPAC's been my favorite so far. Just the whole ambiance of it was really cool, and the way that it's like set. I don't know, the lawn is like set lower, and then the pavilion. It's just a gorgeous venue.
Yeah, all those pretty trees. It's amazing.
But Fox was really cool too. So I don't know. It's a tie.
SPAC's a special, special place. I think the sound is helped by all those trees, honestly, in the lawn.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
What's your big Chase song?
Let's see. I would have to say, no, I've gotten a lot of them these days. I know there's one in there somewhere, and honestly, I can't think of it. I don't know.
It's a good problem to have.
It is. It is. I know there's one in there, and I can't think of it. I'll have to get back to you on that one. It's a good problem to have.
No, no worries at all. It's a lot of pressure. These rapid fire questions are very serious.
It is. It'll come to me in like 10 minutes from now, too.
So I'm so glad I get to be the one to ask this question. Alex wrote it, but I get to ask it. So would you rather fight one elephant-sized goose or 20 goose-sized elephants?
Oh my goodness. I think that I would have to go with one gigantic goose. The little ones seem really scary, and like, I don't know. I feel like they'd be harder to take down.
20 small elephants is pretty terrifying.
It'd be like the little tiny raptors in Jurassic Park. That's what I'm imagining. That's terrifying. That's actually terrifying.
Oh, perfect. I love it.
I think I'm gonna have to go with that.
I don't know where I came up
It's
with
a good
that.
question. I love it though. You should definitely ask everyone that.
So, last little bit, just wanted to give you the chance to plug your pages or anyone's pages you wanted to highlight or anything you wanted to highlight within the community.
Sure. You know, the Western Sun Foundation is an amazing organization to get involved with. So, we try to make it very easy to get involved as far as donations. Sometimes we're doing events throughout the run where we're actually like on site somewhere. Like the golf outing was really fun. For like the cap last year, we did like a women's like feminine products and diaper collection. For the Cincy run, we just did like a signed set list, which was really cool because you just basically can scan a QR code, throw some money in, and you've contributed and you get a chance to win. So definitely, if you don't know about Western Sun Foundation, look it up. It's super cool. It's also really, really fun to just volunteer at the tables and a good way to get involved. Also, another group that I kind of wanted to highlight is a group called the Redbirds. So it's the ADA. It's a very active Facebook group right now. As far as like outside of Facebook, we don't really have a whole lot, but that's a good place for anybody that has anybody in their life that needs ADA or yourself has ADA, you just need support, finding out information with venues and all that kind of stuff. It's a really good place just in general to ask questions and have some support within the community. Yeah, and then Jively, you can find me on Instagram at Jively Designs or jivelydesigns.com. Yeah, I think that's really it.
Awesome. And that's spelled Leigh.
Correct. Yes, Leigh.
Yep. So awesome to have you on. Thank you for doing this. You've been one of our supporters since day one, and we just absolutely love this.
Yes, this was really fun. I'm always a fan of any way in the community to get our voices out and heard, and whether it's talking about silly goose stuff or things that matter, any voice is important.
We very much appreciate you, and we hope the community does as well because your work is outstanding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you guys too. Anyway, I can support you. Just let me know.
We really appreciate that. That's what you said from day one, and now we're hopefully continuing to be great friends in this community and build something beautiful. So
for sure, got to get to a show together.
Definitely. Everyone definitely go check out Jively Designs, jivelydesigns.com. Her Instagram's amazing. And thank you all so much for checking out our episode of the Slow Ready podcast. Hope to see you all soon. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.